The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons and had been the meeting place for the galaxy's most powerful alien races for over 3,000 years. Today, something was very wrong. Ambassador Talvex walked quickly through the crystal corridors, his translucent body shimmering with worry. He belonged to the Zephyrians, a race made of living crystal that could communicate through light patterns. Right now, his entire form was flashing red, the color of extreme danger. The emergency council chamber was already packed. 7 different alien species had sent their most important leaders here. The air hummed with different breathing systems and translation devices working overtime. Some aliens floated in special gas bubbles, others stood on mechanical legs, and a few existed. There's pure energy contained in small boxes. Talvex stepped up to the central platform. His voice came out as musical tones that the translators turned into words everyone could understand. "Friends, what I'm about to tell you will shake the foundations of everything we know," he began. "For the past 6 months, our scout ships have been reporting impossible things from the Outer Rim territories." He activated a holographic display that showed a 3-dimensional map of their galaxy. Red dots marked dozens of locations near the edge of known space. Here the mining colony of Zerion 7 stopped all communications 3 weeks ago. When we sent a rescue fleet of 50 ships, they found nothing but empty space and radiation that our sensors couldn't identify. Worried murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Thekmori military commander, a creature that looked like a walking tank with 6 arms, raised one of his weapons. "Probably pirates or raiders," he growled. "We've dealt with them before." But Talvex shook his crystalline head. "No, Commander Gextar, this is different. The energy signatures we're detecting don't match any known technology in our databases. And it's not just one colony." The hologram zoomed in to show more red dots appearing across several star systems. Each one represented a place that had suddenly gone silent. Entire battle fleets have vanished without sending even a single distress signal. We're talking about ships that could destroy planets, just gone. And wherever these disappearances happen, our long-range sensors pick up traces of something that shouldn't exist. In the back of the chamber, an ancient figure slowly stood up. Keeper Morden was older than recorded history itself. His species had been exploring space when most others were still learning to make fire. His voice was like whispers from a tomb. "I have seen these energy readings before," Morden said, and the entire chamber fell silent. "In the Forbidden Archives, in the records we were ordered never to speak of again." He moved to the center of the chamber, his ancient bones creaking. With each step, with trembling hands, he activated a different holographic display. This one showed text in languages so old that only he could read them. Long ago, before our Confederation existed, there were stories, legends that we told ourselves were just myths created to frighten children. They spoke of a race that came from the impossible, from a world so deadly that nothing should have been able to live there, let alone become intelligent. The other ambassadors leaned forward. Some had heard these stories as children, but they had always been dismissed as fantasy. They called them the Death World spawn, Morden continued. The legends said they came from a planet where everything was trying to kill everything else, where the weather could destroy cities, where tiny invisible creatures could end civilizations, where even the plants were weapons. He paused, looking around the chamber with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. According to the stories, this race didn't just survive their nightmare world. They thrived on it. They became something that the galaxy had never seen before. Predators so perfect that they could turn anything into a weapon. Creatures so dangerous that even thinking about them was considered bad luck. The chamber erupted in nervous chatter. These were some of the most advanced beings in the galaxy, but they were scared. "But those are just old stories," protested the Vorthan representative, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. "Myths and legends to explain things our ancestors couldn't understand." Morden's ancient eyes fixed on her. "Are they? Because the energy signatures Talvex is showing us match exactly what those old records describe. The same impossible readings, the same complete disappearances, the same silence that follows in their wake." He turned back to the holographic display and pointed to a small, unremarkable yellow star near the edge of the galaxy. "The legends say they came from there. from a system that was quarantined and forgotten, a place we were told to never visit, never investigate, never even think about. But if I'm right, if these aren't just stories—" His voice dropped to barely a whisper, but in the silent chamber everyone heard every word. "Then the Death World spawn have returned, and if the legends are true, that means the age of peace in our galaxy is about to end." Dr. Hana Kim brushed the ancient dust away from the stone tablet, her heart racing with excitement. She had been digging on this dead planet for 3 months and finally found something that could change everything humanity knew about their place in the universe. The planet, Kepler 442c, was supposed to be empty. All the scans from Earth had shown it was just another lifeless rock floating in space. But when the human exploration ship Endeavour arrived, they found something incredible: the ruins of an ancient alien city buried under miles of sand and time. Hana was one of the best xenoarchaeologists in the human fleet. She specialized in studying alien cultures and their artifacts. But what she was looking at now made her hands shake as she held her translation device over the strange symbols carved into the stone. "Computer, can you make sense of these markings?" she whispered into her recorder. The ship's artificial intelligence had been working for weeks to decode the alien language. Slowly, words began appearing on her screen. At first, they seemed like normal historical records, but as more text translated, Hana felt a chill run down her spine. The symbols weren't just telling the story of this dead civilization. They were warnings. Desperate warnings about something that had terrified an entire species so much that they carved their fears into stone before they died. "Warning to all who find this message," the translation read. "The children of the burning world have returned to the stars. They come from the place where death itself learned to walk, where the very air kills and the ground burns with liquid fire." Hana sat back in her chair, staring at the screen. The burning world. Could they be talking about Earth? Humans had always joked that their planet was unusually dangerous compared to what they expected other worlds to be like. But this was something else entirely. She continued reading, and each line made her more uncomfortable. "They turn metal into starfire. They make weapons from their very breath. They do not conquer, they erase, they do not take prisoners, they leave nothing behind. Beware the ones who learn to kill on the world that tried to kill them first." The tablet went on to describe beings that sounded impossibly dangerous, creatures that could survive in environments that would kill anything else, beings that saw every tool as a weapon and every problem as something to be destroyed rather than solved. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, the Confederation's most advanced scout ships were detecting something that shouldn't have been possible. Captain Rixnall of the survey vessel Deep Eye was staring at his instruments in complete confusion. "Sir, you need to see this," his science officer called out. "We're getting gravitational readings that don't make any sense." The main screen showed a 3-dimensional map of local space. Moving through it were massive distortions, like invisible mountains pushing through the fabric of reality itself. "How big are these objects?" Captain Rixnall asked. "That's just it, sir. They're not objects. They're formations. Hundreds of smaller masses moving together in perfect coordination. And they're traveling faster than our fastest ships. This was impossible. The Confederation had the most advanced space travel technology in the known galaxy. Their ships could cross between star systems in days rather than years. But whatever was creating these gravitational waves was moving even faster." "Where are they headed?" the captain asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. "Toward the galactic core, sir. Directly toward Confederation space. At their current speed, they'll reach our outer colonies in less than 2 months." Back on the dead planet, Hana had found more tablets. Each one told the same story from different perspectives. An entire galaxy-spanning civilization had encountered these children of the burning world and been completely destroyed. Not conquered, not enslaved, simply erased from existence. The final tablet she translated was the most disturbing of all. It wasn't a warning or a historical record. It was a prayer. "To whoever finds this message, run. Do not try to fight them. Do not try to negotiate with them. Do not try to understand them. They are what happens when a world tries to kill its children for millions of years, and the children refuse to die. They learn to turn suffering into strength, fear into fury, and death into a weapon." Hana's communication device suddenly came to life. It was an emergency message from Earth Command, being broadcast to every human ship in space. All vessels, return to Sol System immediately. We have detected large unknown forces moving toward human space. This is not a drill. Repeat, all vessels return home immediately. As Hana looked around at the ruins surrounding her, the remains of a civilization that had once spanned hundreds of worlds, she realized something terrifying. The warnings carved in stone weren't about some mythical monsters from ancient history. They were about humans. And if these aliens were right about what humans were capable of, then the galaxy was about to discover why Earth had produced the most dangerous species it had ever seen. The children of the burning world were coming home, and they were bringing everything they had learned about survival in the cruelest place in the universe. Captain Ji-hoon Park was having his morning coffee when the universe changed forever. He had been commanding the UES Defiant for 3 years, patrolling the outer edges of human space and looking for signs of alien life. Today he found it, but not the way anyone had expected. The communication officer, Lieutenant Sumi Cho, suddenly sat up straight at her station. Her face went pale as she pressed her earpiece closer to her ear. "Captain, you need to hear this," she said, her voice shaking. "We're receiving transmissions on multiple frequencies. They're not human." Ji-hoon set down his coffee cup and walked over to her station. "What kind of transmissions?" "Sir, they're coming from everywhere. Dozens of different sources, all broadcasting on emergency channels, and Captain..." She paused, looking confused and frightened. "They're talking about us." The bridge fell silent as Sumi put the transmissions on the main speakers. What came out was unlike anything any human had ever heard before. Strange clicking sounds, musical tones, and electronic buzzes filled the air. But underneath it all, the ship's translation computer was working frantically to make sense of it. The first voice that came through clearly was high-pitched and sounded terrified. "Emergency alert to all Confederation vessels. The ancient warnings were true. Sol 3 inhabitants are active again. Repeat, the Death World spawn have returned to space." Ji-hoon felt his stomach drop. Sol 3 was what astronomers called Earth, the third planet from the Sun. These aliens were talking about humans, but they were calling them something else, something that sounded dangerous. Another voice came through, this one deeper and more mechanical sounding. "All available fleets converge on Sol System immediately. Do not attempt communication. Do not attempt negotiation. The legends cannot be reasoned with." "The legends," Ji-hoon whispered to himself. "They're calling us legends." More transmissions kept coming in. Some were in languages the computer couldn't translate at all, but the ones it could understand all said similar things. The aliens weren't just aware of humanity. They were absolutely terrified of them. "Mayday, mayday. This is Battle Cruiser Nextara. We have detected human energy signatures moving toward Confederation space, requesting immediate evacuation of all civilian populations in sectors 7 through 12. Warning to all merchant vessels, avoid Sol System at all costs. The children of the burning world have awakened. Repeat, avoid Sol System." Lieutenant Yuna Kim, the ship's science officer, was frantically working at her computer. "Captain, I'm detecting massive gravitational disturbances throughout this entire region of space. It looks like hundreds of alien ships are moving toward Earth." Ji-hoon stared at the main screen as dots representing alien vessels appeared on their long-range sensors. There were so many that they looked like a swarm of angry insects heading straight for humanity's home. "Sir," Sumi said quietly, "there's something else. Some of these transmissions they're instructions. Battle plans." She isolated one of the clearer signals and played it back. "Attention all Confederation forces. Rules of engagement for Operation Death World containment. Maintain maximum distance. Use only long-range weapons. Do not board human vessels under any circumstances. Do not take prisoners. Do not attempt to study their technology. Complete elimination is the only acceptable outcome." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. These weren't the friendly greetings from space messages that humans had always imagined receiving. These aliens were planning to destroy humanity completely. "Captain," said Commander Donghyun Lee, the ship's tactical officer, "they're not trying to make first contact with us. They already know who we are. Somehow they've known about us for a long time. Jihoon nodded grimly. The pieces were starting to fit together in a terrifying way. They're not discovering us, he said slowly. They're hunting us. More transmissions continued to pour in. Some were tactical reports about human ship movements. Others were historical records being shared between alien commanders, describing battles that had supposedly happened thousands of years ago. Battles between aliens and humans that no human had ever heard of. This is impossible, Eunice said, reading through the translated messages. They're talking about our ancestors fighting wars across the galaxy, but humans have never left the solar system before 50 years ago. One transmission caught Jihoon's attention. It was different from the others, older somehow, like a recording that had been passed down through generations. For those who have forgotten the ancient warnings, let this record serve as reminder. The species from Sol 3 does not fight for territory or resources. They fight to eliminate threats. They do not show mercy because they never learned what mercy was. Their world taught them that everything which is not them will try to kill them, so they learned to kill everything first. Jihoon felt a chill run down his spine. The voice continued. They call their world Earth, but the old records name it truly the Death World, a planet so hostile that it created the perfect predators. When they left their world before, it took the combined might of 7 civilizations to drive them back. Now they return, and we may not be strong enough to stop them a second time. The captain looked around at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? How do you fight an entire galaxy that thinks you're the monsters? Set course for Earth, Jihoon finally said. Maximum speed. Sir? Sumi asked. If the whole galaxy is coming to kill us, Jihoon replied, then we need to get home and warn everyone. Because apparently, we're not making first contact with aliens. He paused, looking at the swarm of alien ships on the screen. We're about to fight a war that started before any of us were born. Admiral Kexmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the view screen that showed the edge of the Sol system. Behind him stretched the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. 10,000 warships from 7 different alien species, all united for one purpose: to destroy humanity before it could spread beyond its home system. The admiral was a Thekmori, a species that looked like living tanks with multiple arms and thick armor plating. His people had been warriors for 50,000 years, and he had personally led campaigns that conquered entire star systems. But today, he felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: nervousness. All fleet commanders, report status. He growled into his communication device. One by one, the alien captains checked in. The Zephyrians brought their crystal ships that could bend light itself into weapons. The Vorthans had bioships grown from living creatures that could regenerate damage instantly. The Klaxon Empire contributed their massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets in half. Every major military power in the galaxy had sent their best. Admiral, his science officer reported, long-range scans show primitive technology throughout the system. Basic fusion engines, simple communication arrays. Their largest ships appear to be cargo vessels and mining platforms. Kexmore felt a wave of relief. Maybe the ancient legends had been exaggerated. Maybe humans were just another species that could be dealt with quickly and efficiently. Signal all ships, he commanded. We advance in formation. Primary targets are the 3rd planet and any orbital installations. This should be over within hours. But as the massive alien fleet moved deeper into the solar system, something was wrong. The humans weren't running. They weren't sending desperate messages begging for mercy. In fact, they seemed to be ignoring the alien armada entirely. On Earth, Admiral Kyung-Ho Kim was standing in the command center, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around him, hundreds of human officers were calmly working at their stations, monitoring screens that showed every ship in the solar system. Sir, alien fleet has crossed the outer marker, reported Colonel In-Soo Park. 10,000 ships confirmed. They're maintaining standard battle formation. Kyung-Ho nodded. Good. Let them get closer. We want them all inside the perimeter before we begin. The human admiral was much smaller than his alien counterpart, but his eyes held the cold calculation of someone who had spent his entire life preparing for this exact moment. While the aliens had been living in peace for thousands of years, humans had been planning for war. Sir, asked Major So Young Lee. "Shouldn't we try to communicate with them? Maybe we can avoid this fight." Kyung-ho looked at her with an expression that was both sad and determined. "Major, they didn't come here to talk. They came here to kill every human being in existence. The only question now is whether we let them. Do it or not." As the alien fleet moved past Jupiter, they began to notice something strange. Every asteroid in the belt had been moved slightly out of its natural orbit. What looked like mining equipment was attached to hundreds of space rocks, but the energy readings were wrong for simple mining operations. "Admiral," the Zephyrian fleet commander transmitted, "we're detecting unusual modifications to the debris field. Recommend caution." But Kexamore was focused on what appeared to be an easy victory. "Maintain course. A few primitive mining platforms won't stop the combined might. Have the Confederation." That's when the asteroids started moving. What the aliens had thought were mining platforms were actually massive kinetic launchers. Humans had spent decades turning every piece of space debris in their system into weapons. Asteroids that had been drifting peacefully for millions of years suddenly accelerated to incredible speeds, hurling toward the alien fleet like bullets fired from the guns of gods. "Evasive maneuvers!" Kexamore shouted, but it was too late. The first wave of kinetic projectiles slammed into the alien formation. These weren't explosive warheads or energy beams. They were simple chunks of rock and metal moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light. When they hit the alien shields, the laws of physics did the rest. The Vorthon bioships, famous for their ability to heal from any damage, were simply vaporized. The Klaxon dreadnoughts, built to withstand planet-killing weapons, were torn apart like paper. Even the advanced Zephyrian shields designed to deflect energy weapons couldn't stop the raw kinetic force of accelerated asteroids. "How is this possible?" Kexamore demanded. "No species develops kinetic weapons as their primary armament." His tactical officer was frantically analyzing the human attack patterns. "Sir, they're not using their asteroids randomly. Every shot is calculated to hit us at our weakest points. They know exactly how our ships are built." On Earth, Admiral Kyung-ho was watching the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. Alien fleet reduced by 30%. Begin Phase 2. Across the solar system, what had appeared to be simple space stations and communication satellites suddenly revealed their true purpose. Solar collection arrays that had been gathering energy from the sun for decades rotated to face the alien fleet. Mining ships that had been peacefully extracting resources from moons and asteroids deployed weapons that no civilized species would ever think to build. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a trap. Every moon base was a fortress. Every space station was a weapons platform. Every piece of technology that looked peaceful was actually designed to kill invaders as efficiently as possible. "This isn't a primitive civilization," Kexamore realized with growing horror. "This is a military installation disguised as a star system." The second wave of human attacks began, and the Admiral understood why the ancient legends had been so terrifying. Humans didn't fight fair. They didn't follow the rules of civilized warfare. They fought to win, using every dirty trick and underhanded tactic they could think of, and they were very, very good at it. Admiral Taejin Choi stood in the underground command center, his finger hovering over a button that would change everything. Around him, massive screens showed the alien fleet scattered throughout the solar system, trying to recover from the asteroid bombardment. But the real fight was just beginning. "All stations, this is Terra Command," he spoke into his headset. "Initiate Fortress Protocol. Authorization, Alpha 77 Red." Across the solar system, humanity's true nature was about to be revealed. For over 300 years, humans had been preparing for this day. Not because they knew aliens existed, but because they assumed that if aliens did exist, they would probably try to kill humanity. It was a paranoid assumption that most species would never make. But humans weren't like most species. On Mars, what everyone thought was a peaceful terraforming station suddenly transformed. The massive atmospheric processes that had been slowly making the planet breathable stopped their work and began producing something else entirely. Clouds of microscopic machines designed to eat through alien ship hulls. Commander Sungmin Kim watched from the Mars Control Center as the nanobots, spread through space like an invisible plague. "Biological warfare deployment successful," he reported. "Target: alien respiratory systems and ship electronics." The aliens had no idea what was happening. Their ships began experiencing system failures as tiny machines, smaller than bacteria, started consuming their technology from the inside out. What made it worse was that humans had designed different nanobots for each alien species, based on intelligence gathered from intercepted communications. Meanwhile, the large solar collection arrays orbiting close to the Sun began to move. For decades, these massive structures had been quietly gathering energy to power human colonies. But their real purpose was much more sinister. Lieutenant Sora Park, stationed on Solar Platform 7, smiled grimly as she activated the weapon. Systems. Target acquired. Focusing solar energy on alien flagship. The solar collectors, each one the size of a small city, began concentrating the sun's energy into tight beams. It was like creating artificial lightning, but 1,000,000 times more powerful. The beams lanced across space, turning alien warships into glowing metal before they even knew they were under attack. But the most terrifying surprise was yet to come. Captain Jin Woo Lee commanded what appeared to be a simple mining vessel near the asteroid belt. To any observer, his ship looked like a harmless industrial platform designed to extract minerals from space rocks. But hidden in its cargo bay was something that violated every treaty of civilized warfare. A weapon that could tear holes in space itself. "Mining Ship 7 to Terra Command," Jinwoo reported calmly. "Singularity bombs armed and ready for deployment." These weren't normal explosives. They were miniature black holes, contained in magnetic fields and designed to be dropped like depth charges. When they activated, they would create gravitational distortions powerful enough to crush entire fleets. "Deploy at your discretion, Captain," Admiral Tae-jin replied. "Remember, leave no survivors." The alien commander Kexmore was beginning to understand the horrible truth. This wasn't a battle between a peaceful civilization and an invading force. This was a trap that had been centuries in the making. "How is this possible?" he demanded from his damaged flagship. "No species weaponizes their entire star system." His intelligence officer, badly injured from the nanobot attack, could barely speak. "Sir, we've analyzed their technology. Every single piece of human equipment has a secondary military function. Their communication satellites are spy networks. Their weather control systems are atmospheric weapons. Even their garbage disposal units can be converted into projectile launchers. On Earth's moon, what tourists had always been told was a research facility revealed its true nature. The lunar base opened like a flower, exposing massive railgun batteries that had been hidden beneath the surface. These electromagnetic cannons could fire projectiles at such high speeds that they became pure energy by the time they reached their targets. Major Heejin Ko watched through her periscope as the railguns began their deadly work. Lunar base to Terra Command, engaging enemy cruisers with kinetic bombardment. Estimated time to target elimination, 4 minutes. The aliens were discovering that humans had turned physics itself into a weapon. They didn't just use explosives and energy beams like civilized species. They used gravity, momentum, biology, chemistry, and even time distortion as tools of war. What made it truly terrifying was how efficiently it all worked together. The solar platforms blinded enemy sensors, while the nanobots disabled their defenses. The mining ships created gravitational anomalies that pulled damaged alien vessels into killing zones where the lunar railguns could finish them off. Admiral Tae-jin watched the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. Every system was working exactly as designed. Humanity's greatest strength had always been their ability to turn anything into a weapon when threatened. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "alien fleet strength down to 60% and falling. They're trying to retreat." Tae-jin shook his head. "No retreat, no survivors. Activate the outer system defensive grid." Even the edges of the solar system had been weaponized. What looked like simple navigation beacons were actually mines that could track fleeing ships across light years. What appeared to be scientific research probes were hunter-killer drones designed to follow enemy vessels back to their home worlds. The aliens had come expecting to fight a primitive species. Instead, they had walked into a solar system that had been converted into the galaxy's most deadly trap. and the humans were just getting started. Commander Min Jung Lee stood on the bridge of the UES Ragnarok, watching as the alien fleet tried, desperately to regroup after the devastating system-wide attack. Her ship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, not because of its size or firepower, but because of how it thought. "Arya, show me their formation patterns," she said to the ship's artificial intelligence. The AI's voice was calm and almost cheerful, which made what it said even more disturbing. "Analysis complete, Commander. The aliens are using Standard Battle Formation 7, typical for species that value honor in combat. I have identified 847 ways to exploit their predictable movements. Shall I begin implementing psychological warfare protocols?" Min Jung smiled coldly. While other species built AI to help with navigation and communications, humans had created artificial minds designed for one purpose: finding better ways to kill their enemies. "Engage cloaking systems and begin the hunt," she ordered. The Ragnarok vanished from all sensors, becoming invisible to every detection method the aliens possessed. But this wasn't just simple light-bending technology. The ship could hide its heat signature, gravitational disturbance, and even the quantum fluctuations of its engines. To the alien fleet, it had simply ceased to exist. On the alien flagship, Admiral Kexmore was trying to understand what was happening to his forces. Ships were exploding for no apparent reason. Entire squadrons were going silent without sending distress signals. It was like fighting ghosts. "Sir, we've lost contact with Battle Group 7, his communications officer reported. "Their last transmission was strange." "Strange how?" Kexmore demanded. "They were laughing, sir. All of them. Just laughing, right before their ships exploded." What the aliens didn't know was that human ships carried psychological warfare systems. The Ragnarok had been broadcasting signals directly into the alien crew's brains, making them see things that weren't there, hear voices of their dead relatives, and gradually driving them insane with fear. "Arya, status report," Min Jung requested. "Psychological attack successful on 73% of enemy vessels. Their crew efficiency has dropped by 45%. Several ships are firing on their own allies, believing them to be human vessels. Shall I increase the intensity?" "Not yet. Let's try something more direct first." The Ragnarok suddenly appeared in the middle of the alien formation, but only for 3 seconds. In that time, it launched a barrage of weapons that no civilized species would ever consider using. Self-replicating viruses that infected ship computers, microscopic drones that could slip through the smallest gaps and tear apart electronics from the inside. And strangest of all, weapons that seemed to learn and adapt with each shot. Commander Min Jung watched as alien ships began turning their own weapons on each other. "Arya, explain what's happening to their fleet." "Simple, Commander. I infected their targeting systems with adaptive malware. Their computers now identify their own allies as the primary threat. The more they try to fix the problem, the worse it becomes. Classic human warfare. Turn the enemy's strengths against them." This was what made human warfare so terrifying. Other species fought to conquer territory or capture resources. They had rules about treatment of prisoners and protocols for surrender. Humans had none of these limitations. Captain Jae-won Park, commanding the stealth destroyer Nemesis, was demonstrating this principle perfectly. His ship had been stalking a damaged alien cruiser for 20 minutes, not to capture it, but to study how its crew reacted to stress. "Sir, the alien ship is broadcasting surrender signals," his communications officer reported. "Ignored." "Continue the experiment," Jae-won replied coldly. "How long before their crew breaks completely?" "Estimated 12 more minutes of psychological pressure, sir." The human approach to war was simple. Eliminate the threat completely. There was no point in taking prisoners who might escape and warn others. No benefit to showing mercy that might be seen as weakness. Humans fought like the apex predators they had evolved to be. Lieutenant Colonel Yoo-jin Kim was coordinating the assault from her command ship Fury. Unlike the aliens, who had a single battle plan they followed rigidly, humans adapted constantly. "All ships implement Chaos Protocol 7, she broadcast. "Randomize attack patterns every 30 seconds, make them impossible to predict. Human vessels began behaving in ways that broke every rule of space combat. They would appear, fire a single shot, and vanish. They would broadcast false surrender signals and then attack when the aliens tried to accept. They would even use their own damaged ships as weapons, ramming them into alien formations just as they exploded. "Commander," Arya informed Min Jung, "the aliens are attempting to retreat to the outer system." "Perfect. Activate the Hunter-Killer Protocol." This was perhaps the most ruthless aspect of human warfare. They didn't just win battles, they made sure the enemy could never threaten them again. As the alien ships tried to flee, they found that human vessels had been waiting for them, having predicted their escape routes hours in advance. The aliens were learning a terrible lesson about humanity. Humans didn't fight wars to prove their strength or gain honor. They fought to ensure their survival by making sure their enemies couldn't fight back ever again. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "alien fleet strength now down to 20%. Remaining ships are scattered and demoralized." Min Jung nodded. "Begin final phase. No survivors, no witnesses. Make sure no one escapes to warn the rest of the galaxy." What happened here? The Battle of Sol wasn't just a victory, it was a demonstration. A message that would echo across the galaxy when nobody came back to tell the story. Humans had returned to space, and they remembered exactly how to win wars. Admiral Seung-ho Kim floated in the zero-gravity command center of his flagship, surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire solar system. Each dot of light represented ships locked in deadly combat, but the pattern was becoming clear. The aliens were losing badly. "Battle Group Alpha report status," he spoke into his headset. "Sir, we've eliminated their left flank completely," came the reply from Captain Daeun Park. "The Zephyrian crystal ships shatter beautifully when you hit them with sonic weapons." Seung-ho allowed himself a small smile. While the aliens had been living in peace for thousands of years, humans had spent that time studying warfare. Every human military officer learned not just how to fight, but how to think like their enemies and exploit their weaknesses. "Battle Group Beta, what's your situation?" "The Vorthon bioships are interesting, Admiral," reported Commander Ji-Hoon Lee. "They can heal from energy weapons, but they can't handle poison. We've been feeding them modified viruses through their air intake systems. They're dying from the inside out." This was what made human warfare so effective. They didn't just attack with overwhelming force. They studied each enemy species, learned exactly how they fought, and then developed specific tactics to counter their advantages. On the alien side, Admiral Kexmore was watching his carefully planned invasion fall apart in real time. His 10,000 ships had been reduced to fewer than 2,000, and those remaining were scattered across the solar system, many of them damaged and demoralized. "Sir, the humans aren't fighting randomly," his tactical officer reported. "Blood streaming from wounds caused by a hull breach. They're anticipating our every move. It's like they know our battle plans better than we do." Kexmore stared at the tactical display in horror. Every time his forces tried a new strategy, the humans were already waiting for them. When his ships tried to retreat, human vessels appeared exactly where the retreat routes led. When they attempted to regroup, human attackers struck at the precise moment when they were most vulnerable. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "We're using tactics that have worked for 50,000 years. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been intercepting their communications for months before the battle began. Every alien military manual, every tactical training program, every historical battle record had been studied and analyzed by human artificial intelligence systems. Commander Hae Sung-ko was demonstrating this perfectly as she led her squadron against a group of Klaxon dreadnoughts. These massive ships were supposed to be nearly indestructible, but she had found their weakness. "All ships, target their communication arrays first," she ordered. "These aliens rely on coordinated fleet movements. Once they can't talk to each other, they become sitting ducks." Her prediction proved correct. As soon as the Klaxon ships lost communication with their command vessel, they began making individual decisions instead of fighting as a coordinated unit. The humans picked them off one by one, like hunters separating prey from the herd. Lieutenant Colonel Myung-Jin Choi was handling the psychological warfare aspect of the battle from his stealth ship. His job wasn't to destroy alien vessels directly, but to break the will of their crews to fight. broadcasting terror frequencies on all alien communication channels, he reported. Also transmitting fabricated messages about human reinforcements arriving. Enemy morale dropping rapidly. The aliens were discovering that humans didn't just fight with weapons, they fought with fear, confusion, and despair. Human ships would broadcast the death screams of alien crews to other alien vessels. They would show holographic images of destroyed alien worlds that didn't even exist yet. They would make their enemies afraid to fight by making them believe. That resistance was hopeless. Captain Sojin Park was coordinating the final phase of the battle from her command ship. Around her, dozens of tactical officers were tracking the remaining alien vessels and predicting their next moves. "Sir, Group 7 is trying to escape toward the outer planets," one officer reported. "Predicted," Sojin replied calmly. "Battle. Group Charlie is already in position to intercept them. Battle Group Delta will cut off their secondary escape route in 3 minutes." This level of tactical prediction was only possible because humans had studied alien psychology extensively. They knew that when Thekamori warriors were losing, they would always try to die fighting rather than retreat. They knew that Zephyrian commanders would sacrifice themselves to save their subordinates. They knew exactly how each species would react under pressure. But some aliens were managing to escape, and that was part of the human plan too. "Commander, Tae-Hyun Lim deliberately allowed a few damaged alien ships to flee the battle. These survivors would return to their home worlds with stories of human capabilities that would terrify the entire galaxy." "Sir, shouldn't we destroy all of them?" asked his weapons officer. "No," Tae-Hyun replied. "Fear is our best weapon now. Let them go back and tell everyone what they saw here. Let them spread stories about human ruthlessness and tactical superiority. The next time anyone thinks about attacking humanity, they'll remember what happened to the largest fleet in galactic history." Admiral Seung-ho watched the final alien ships disappear into hyperspace, carrying news of humanity's victory back to the Confederation. The battle was over, but the real war was just beginning. "All ships, begin salvage operations," he ordered. "I want every piece of alien technology studied and analyzed. Their weapons, their engines, their communication systems, everything." The surviving aliens would spread word throughout the galaxy. Humans didn't just win battles, they learned from them. Every captured piece of technology, every intercepted communication, every tactical mistake made by their enemies became part of humanity's growing knowledge base. The galaxy was about to discover that humans were the most dangerous species they had ever encountered, not because of their strength, but because of their ability to learn, adapt, and become deadlier with each victory. Keeper Morden's ancient hands shook as he accessed the deepest archives in the Confederation's history, vaults. The battle at Seoul had ended 3 days ago, and the survivors were spreading terrifying stories throughout the galaxy. But Morden knew these weren't just stories, they were memories returning from a nightmare the galaxy had tried to forget. The archive chamber was buried beneath miles of rock on the Confederation's capital world, protected by security systems. That hadn't been activated in over 3,000 years. As Morden descended into the forbidden levels, emergency lights flickered on, illuminating walls covered in warnings written in dozens of dead languages. "Access denied," the ancient computer system announced. "These records are sealed by order of the First Council. Override authorization, Keeper Prime, Archive Level Omega." Morden spoke into the recognition scanner. "Emergency protocol, Death World, Resurrection." The massive vault doors, untouched for millennia, slowly ground open. Inside, holographic storage units contained the true history of the galaxy, the history that had been hidden from every species for their own peace of mind. Morden activated the first record, and a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared before him. But this wasn't the galaxy he knew. 4,000 years ago, it had looked very different. Where peaceful trade routes now existed, the map showed battle zones stretching across hundreds of star systems. Historical Record 1, the Phi. Archive computer began in a voice heavy with age. The First Galactic War. Duration 847 standard years. Combatants, the Confederation Alliance versus the Sol Hegemony. Images began flowing through the hologram. Massive space battles, planets burning, entire star systems reduced to debris fields. But what shocked Morden wasn't the scale of destruction. It was who was winning. The humans weren't primitive newcomers to space. They had been out here before, and they had been incredibly good at it. The species from Sol 3 emerged into galactic space approximately 4,200 years ago, the computer continued. Initial contact protocols failed when human vessels refused to respond to peaceful communication attempts. First violent encounter, Proxima Station massacre. Human casualties, 0. Confederation casualties, 12,000. Morden watched in horror as the records showed human ships that looked nothing like the crude vessels other species had expected. These were sleek, deadly machines designed for one purpose, killing everything. That wasn't human. Human expansion rate exceeded all predictions, the archive continued. Unlike other species that colonized for resources or territory, humans appeared to colonize for strategic advantage. Every human settlement was a military base. Every human colony was a weapons manufacturing center. The historical record showed something that terrified the old keeper. Humans hadn't just been good at war, they had been the absolute masters of it. While other species fought according to rules and traditions, humans fought to win by any means necessary. Cultural analysis of human settlements revealed disturbing patterns, the computer reported. Human art depicted warfare. Human literature glorified conflict. Human children were educated in tactical thinking from an early age. The entire species appeared to be organized around the concept of perpetual military readiness. Morden saw records of alien diplomats trying to negotiate with human leaders, only to discover that humans didn't understand concepts like neutral territory or civilian populations. To them, everything was either a potential weapon or a potential target. The turning point came during the Battle of Kepler 442, the archive continued. Confederation forces finally achieved victory through overwhelming numerical superiority. 50,000 ships against 3,000 human vessels. Human casualties, 99.7%. Confederation casualties, 89.2%. Even in defeat, the humans had inflicted devastating losses on their enemies. The records showed that it had taken the combined might of 7 different species, fighting together for the first time in galactic history, to finally drive humanity back to their home system. Final phase, Operation Deathworld Containment. Human forces retreated to Sol system. Confederation blockade established. Duration 847 years until human signals ceased entirely. Conclusion, human species extinct due to resource depletion and internal warfare. But Morden now knew the terrible truth. The humans hadn't destroyed themselves. They had been planning. He accessed the final set of records, the ones that showed what had happened after the blockade ended. The Confederation had sent scout ships to investigate the Sol system, expecting to find dead worlds and empty space. Instead, they found something that made them seal the records forever. Scouting report 7834, the computer announced. Sol system investigation reveals extensive terraforming, advanced industrial construction, and energy signatures consistent with weapons testing. Recommendation: maintain quarantine indefinitely. Under no circumstances should this system be approached or investigated further. The truth was becoming clear. During their 1,000-year isolation, humans hadn't become peaceful. They had become something much worse, focused. Every technological advancement, every cultural development, every aspect of their civilization had been oriented toward one goal, preparing for the day when they would meet aliens again. For additional findings, the archive continued, human technology appears to have advanced specifically to counter known Confederation capabilities, stealth systems designed to fool our sensors, weapons designed to penetrate our shields, psychological warfare techniques targeting known alien mental vulnerabilities. Morden realized with growing horror that humans had spent 1,000 years studying their enemies, learning their weaknesses, and developing ways to exploit them. While the rest of the galaxy had moved on to an age of peace and cooperation, humans had remained trapped in a mindset of total war. The final record was the most disturbing of all. Cultural analysis update. Human society appears to have evolved into a perfect war machine. No aspect of their civilization exists without military application. Their scientific research focuses on weapons development. Their entertainment glorifies combat. Their education system produces tactical thinkers. They have become what every species fears most, a civilization that exists solely to destroy other civilizations. Morden shut off the archive and sat in the darkness, understanding finally why his ancestors had hidden these records. The galaxy's greatest nightmare had returned, and this time, humanity was better prepared than ever. The humans weren't just back. They were exactly what the galaxy had created when it tried to destroy them, the perfect predators, evolved specifically to kill aliens, and now they were free. President Yoon Ji Kim stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, looking down at the Confederation's capital world through the massive view screen. The planet below had been the center of galactic civilization for 3,000 years, home to billions of aliens who had lived in peace and prosperity. Now, human warships filled the sky above their world like storm clouds. Madam President, Admiral Dong-Hyun Park reported, "All human fleets are in position. We control every major hyperspace route, every military installation, and every communication hub in Confederation space." Yoon-ji nodded calmly. The operation had taken only 6 months to complete. Once the galaxy's largest military force had been destroyed at Sol, the rest fell like dominoes. No one wanted to fight the species that had turned the greatest armada in history into space debris. "Open a channel to all Confederation worlds," she ordered. "It's time to explain the new reality." Across hundreds of star systems, every communication device suddenly activated. Alien families gathered around their screens, government officials stopped their meetings, and military commanders paused their planning sessions. The face that appeared before them was human, the first most aliens had ever seen in person. President Yoon-ji looked directly into the camera, her expression neither cruel nor kind, but simply matter of fact. "Citizens of the former Galactic Confederation," she began, "I am President Yoon-ji Kim of the Human Republic. Today marks the end of one era and the beginning of another. On the Zephyrian homeworld, millions of crystal beings flickered with nervous energy as they listened. On Vorthan Prime, tentacled creatures coiled together in fear. Throughout the galaxy, species that had never known terror were learning what it felt like. Some of you may remember the old stories about my people, the legends of the Deathworld spawn, the nightmares your ancestors told to frighten children. Today you learned that those stories were true." The president paused, letting that sink in. In government buildings across the galaxy, alien leaders were frantically trying to decide how to respond. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others still believed they could fight. All of them were afraid. "But I want to make something clear," Yoon-ji continued. "Humanity has not come to conquer you. We have not come to enslave your worlds or steal your resources. We have come to establish order." Commander Min-ho Lee, watching from his ship orbiting the Thekmori military headquarters, smiled grimly. The aliens didn't understand yet, but they would soon learn that this was worse than conquest. "The age of the Confederation is over," the president announced. "Your councils, your committees, your endless debates and diplomatic negotiations, all of it ends today. From now on, when humanity speaks, the galaxy listens." On the Confederation capital world below, emergency sessions were being held in underground bunkers. The surviving alien leaders were trying to understand what the humans wanted. "Perhaps we can negotiate," suggested the Vorthan ambassador, his tentacles writhing nervously. "Find some compromise that works for everyone. But keep a Morden," now the oldest living being in the galaxy, shook his ancient head. "You still don't understand. Humans don't negotiate, they don't compromise. They simply decide what will happen and then make it happen." Back on the Indomitable, President Yoon-ji was explaining the new rules. "Humanity will not govern your worlds directly. You may keep your local governments, your cultures, your traditions, but when we give an order, it will be followed. When we set a policy, it will be implemented. When we say something is forbidden, it becomes forbidden throughout the galaxy." This was the genius of the human approach. They weren't trying to manage billions of aliens across hundreds of worlds. They were simply making it clear that humanity's word was final on all important matters. Any world that refuses to comply will be removed from the galactic community, Yunji stated simply. Any species that threatens human interests will be eliminated. Any government that defies human authority will be replaced. The aliens were beginning to understand. This wasn't conquest, it was something far more absolute. The humans weren't taking over the galaxy. They were simply making it clear that they were in charge and always had been. Captain Eugene Seo, commanding the human fleet at the former Confederation Military Academy, was watching alien cadets lay down their weapons and surrender. "It's almost anticlimactic," she reported to her superiors. "They're not even trying to fight anymore." "Why would they?" came the reply from Admiral Park. "Fighting us didn't work out well the last time someone tried it." President Yun-ji was finishing her broadcast. "The galaxy spent 4,000 years living in peace because humanity was absent. Now we have returned, and that age of peace is over. Not because we seek war, but because peace only exists when the strongest species allows it to exist." She looked directly into the camera, and every alien watching felt like she was speaking directly to them. Humanity is that strongest species. We always have been. The only difference now is that we're no longer hiding it. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. On world after world, aliens looked up at the human ships in their skies and understood that everything had changed forever. The age of cooperation was over. The age of human dominance had begun, and there was nothing anyone could do about it except accept the new reality, that humans were exactly what the old legends had claimed they were. The apex predators of the galaxy had returned home.